just going for it. So, hi YouTube. This is my first video, and we are the ether system. And right now, this is Alaya, and Alaya is not at all someone who has come out as Alaya before. Alaya comes out as a function normally in the real world and is a full being in the inner world. But in the setting up for the video, Kristen and Chris Nicole were so nervous that I have been designated to do this video. So I'll tell you about myself, and then I have this little whiteboard here about the system. So I'm Alaya, and I'm sitting in front of this table that may or may not have triggered me to be the one to start the YouTube. And so at the table that I'm at, that you can't see, I have things like my obsidian sphere, which I use for scrying, and I have like my tarot decks of the goddess, and some gold inflected cleansing, aura cleansing liquid and my Tibetan bowl and my smudge. And I also have, like, there's one of us in the system, Noble, who is a dove, and so I have like my dove reminder and totem, and just crystals, different things. So like showing you this shows you a little about me. Essential oil smudge spray, which I'm gonna do now because this is our first video. Okay, so that just smudge out nervousness of everyone else listening inside. So we are the ether system, and I helped in the choosing of that name. I was the one who really came up with that name because our tigers, so we have two animals in our system that do not front but are inner beings and guides in the inner world, and those two animals are Noble, the dove, and Akasha, the tiger. And Akasha and I decided that the best name would be the ether system, to represent a movement between all of the elements, and yet the one that does that, the very element that is moving between them all and isn't really one of them. And so I'm going to pull out my whiteboard and just introduce myself. If you can see that, there might be some glare. So the ether system. So I am born as Kristen, and I am 28. And the person that's been fronting a lot lately is Chris. I'm not sure if this is backwards or not in the video. It looks backwards to me. But Chris, who is 14, and is the highest functioning one of us on the outside world, who gets everything done, full-time worker, gets the chores done, just feels good about it, kind of a perfectionist. Chris is who was here right before I started the video and decided to make the channel and to think of a name and to start doing videos of her own. And so Chris was expecting to here, but for some reason, for the first time, I have stepped forth as Alaya. And so who I am, she wrote down here on the bottom. I'm gonna have to face it. So Alaya is someone that comes on the inner and outer world. And so you see this squiggle line for inner and outer world. And all these up here are those who do front and consciously can come into the body at some point in time. And the ones in the lower world are the ones that are just in the inner world. And Alaya is a name that was recently chosen, and it was known for a while but not solidified. And so that's me, and I am not a very solidified part. But what I do is, in the inner world, I'm the traveler who talks to the dove and the tiger and anyone we come across in the inner world. What I look like, I don't look like this. I have white hair and really even more pale skin, and it glows kind of like pearlescent, and really, really, really light glowing blue eyes, and you almost get the idea that I'm like an elvish of sorts, but I'm not. I don't have that ears, or I don't attribute to an elf. I attribute my looks to my nature, and so my nature as Alaya is the higher self of Kristen, the higher self that can use the mind, the subconscious, to do things like scrying and like reading tarot as a medium to then contact spirits. And so I kind of move from the inner world to the outer world as a psychic and an oracle and a spirit medium. And Kristen and Chris are not too fond of that. They're very analytic, and so I'll tell you about the main people. Well, let me finish up the inner world. So in there with me, there's just really two other ones. There's the dove noble, who is an ageless wisdom, and he, non-gendered, is co-conscious with Michael, which I'll get to. And then there's the tiger, Akasha, who's 8 years old now, and we have been with Akasha and Noble for 8 years. So Akasha was just a month old, tiger, and Akasha is very spry and a guardian, very, very affectionate, but also has ultimate power in the inner world to protect from anything. So Akasha is, I guess, what you call a protector. And the dove is this ageless wisdom named Noble. And when we very first met Noble, Noble wouldn't speak to us, and just said, I know you won't come back. I know, Kristen's not going to come back in here and open up this realm, but I'll give you a chance to win my, communication. It was like this telepathic, feeling that I was able to translate. And the dove said, come back every day to the inner world and feed the birds that that reside on the roof of your house, and then we can start talking. And she was right. I call Noble she because I feel there's a little bit more of a she related in the Noble form, but in the Michael form it's a he. So I'm just trying to help Kristen open up her openness to the inner world and those what someone call totems, but they're not really totems. They've been there the whole time. Every time she ever goes in to meditate and drops within, there's Noble and Akasha. And so although maybe in meditations or shamanic journeys there's been like a jaguar, or there's been other animals, sometimes a dragon, or she's met elves, they've only been like a one-time experience, and that's it. Where for 8 years now, Noble and Akasha are there, so they are part of our system. And Akasha has tried to come out of the real world and been a felt, tiger breath on the skin and ear, and a very felt presence in the real world in a normal meditation. And Kristen has tried to look into help for that with her meditation teacher, and just been told, just look past that, just keep following your breath, or following, keep on the path of meditation. And so there's been chances that Noble and Akasha have tried to reach out, but Kristen has tried to stay very firm on the analytical path of Zen and seeing those things as a distraction. So I'll tell you a little bit about the main host, the ones that planned on being here today, that I am getting the chance, is the exciting chance, the first time I've ever fronted in this body, getting a chance to describe from my perspective. So I don't know what they would say about them, but I'll tell you what I would say. So, oh, and this marker kind of matches my shirt. I find that interesting. Okay, so we have Kristen, who's 28, and this year Kristen, as the main host, as the longest living 28-year-old host, left, and sometimes comes in and out. And so I helped draw the symbols to help her understand that there's like a full moon and like a new moon Kristen. And the new moon Kristen is 15 years old and kind of in a dark space and really connected to Kristen, who's 28. And sometimes that dark, fearful, not dark person, but dark space and that fear will drag Kristen in. And connected to that more fearful place, there is a functioning host, Chris Nicole, that we just realized we were fronting as a few days ago in talking to Chrissy. We realized that, oh, there's a Chris Nicole and there's a Chris. And so those are the two that, when the main host isn't comfortable, we fluctuate between, is Chris and Chris Nicole. And so Chris is 14, and like I said, the perfectionist, works, does her chores, everything's right. She does the nails and does the hair and the makeup, and like into contouring, and like totally different than Kristen, who will go makeupless and like just not even brush her hair sometimes because she's so connected to that new moon, dark moon Kristen, who's 15 and in a darker space. And she's really connected to that because she's in very intensive, 3 times a week trauma therapy right now, and so it's just a different time right now. But Chris is who's here often, and Chris is who was planning on doing the video but got nervous. And but I can feel her with me coming forward now as I talk about her. Yeah, I'm starting to feel a little pressure in my head and near my eyes. But I'm still Alaya, but Chris wants to talk and make sure I say some things, so she doesn't want to be misrepresented. She is who Kristen wants to be, she says. She is the one that hadn't yet processed any of the trauma and was going on with full hope in the world, very hopeful and bright and cheery. All the positive qualities of Kristen bottled up in one, and she wants those to know that that's who we most admire. Okay, that's funny. I didn't expect to say that, but that's what Chris is telling me. And then again, Chris Nicole fronts and is dealing with depression right now because she's really connected to the 15-year-old dark space Kristen, and Chris Nicole is 15 where Chris is 14. Chris Nicole is 15 coming into that dark space 15 of Kristen, and she's not quite figured anything out yet, is more lost, a very like confused, lost, depressed, but off and on and kind of accepting it. It's not too serious, and she's been fronting a lot lately and changing with Chris a lot. And the only other two in the system that I right now know to talk about being so new to understanding that I can go ahead and open up and talk about this is Chrissy, who is 5, and she's been around since forever, since I've been 5. She fronts and I talk in a baby voice, so she's kind of coming forward in my mind right now, and she says she's the fun one, the playful one, the one that wants to always have fun, dance and sing and do art, and that she is really connected to Chris, and she's really connected to Michael. She's really connected to Chris and brings fun and art and playful activities to Chris and not just perfectionism. And she is protected strongly by, the main protector in the system is Michael. Michael showed up when the main host, Kristen, was in 5th grade. And so, I'm 28 now in this body. So in 5th grade, Michael showed up, and he was an angelic 2-year-old and would front very strongly, would be the strongest fronting voice variant person. Okay, good. Yeah, talking about Michael, I feel like I'm coming back to Alaya. And Michael back then said he was an angelic 2, so full of wisdom, but 2 years old. And in this system, we relate that those timelines of ages relate to trauma. So he appeared 2 years after something, and he is now, and I keep like an angel. This is obviously looks like a female angel. I keep an angel here on this like magical altar of mine, Alaya's. He's now 19 and looks like Michael the archangel sometimes, but I can't really see him too often in mind. He tells Chrissy what's okay to say. So Chrissy holds a lot of trauma at the age 5, and Michael protects the whole system by helping Chrissy, who's an excited child and doesn't know the damage of what she could do. He helps her to know what to say at the right timing, and she trusts him a lot. They're best friends because Chrissy is also very spiritual. Chris is very spiritual, very Christian. Kristen is agnostic, more into Zen, Buddhist meditation, The dark moon Kristen is an atheist and into science, and Chris Nicole is like undecided agnostic as well. So that is the ether system, and I hope that you have I don't know, any new appreciation for a way that a system can form. And I liked how my skin looked there. It looked more like me for a second. Wonder if I can just like find that again. Okay. Anyway, so that's the system, and we function as a whole, and it's only been a week that this diagnosis that I received a year ago that I'm really starting to open up to. We had a concussion from a car accident this February, and it's now August 1st. Oh, and my favorite shamanic forecast is out. August 1st, love it. It's well, if you just type in shamanic forecast in Google, you'll come to thepowerpath.com, and it's amazing. I find like spot on. It's like a mixture of astrology and shamanic energy forecast, and I'm really into that as Alaya. So we're all really into that, and that's kind of confused the science mind of Kristen and Chris, who's a Christian. But that's a system. If you guys have any questions or any support, this first video, took a lot of bravery to make, and I may upload videos every day of how we're doing, or in different phases, so maybe next time Chris, as she planned, can come out and talk a little more. She wanted to talk about some of the fears and the things that was going on with accepting this, but I decided to step in and to make it more positive and to give that experience away. So thanks for meeting us, and I am on Instagram. I haven't posted yet. I just created this YouTube and this Instagram, but I'm on Instagram as the Ether System, E-T-H-E-R, Ether System, and subscribe so we know someone has watched and liked us, and thank you for your time.